It's shaky Beetle time. We have a Beetle in the shop that's shaking this customer into insanity, and they want to know what is wrong with my car. Let's find out what it is. How do you like my uniforms, Mrs. Wizard?
You're definitely slimming down.
This is the next size down. I've gone down some sizes.
You suck.
No, I'm losing weight. That's great. I'm getting stronger. Lifting weights at the Y, it helps.
It's not so easy for us girls.
Okay, well, you have to try. So the findings on this Beetle that's causing it to shake can apply to many, many cars on the road. Electric cars, gas cars, doesn't matter. There's a ton of cars that can have this issue, so it's definitely want to pay attention. This is a 1999 Volkswagen Beetle. It's a manual with the 2-liter non-turbo, just the 2-liter inline 4-cylinder. And it is very cute, isn't it, Mrs. Wizard?
You do love your Beetles.
I do. I have a silver one. I love Beetles. Actually, my youngest daughter is constantly nagging me. She says, I want one of these Beetles. I've been searching. So we're looking for one for her. This one's not for sale, so I can't get this one for her. But it came in with 2 issues. When she pushes the button to open the fuel door, nothing would happen. And also, it's constantly shaking, especially on the highway or during turns and things. It's just really driving her nuts. So we'll take a look around it and inside, and then we're going to find out what went wrong with the fuel door and what is shaking this car that can shake many cars all across the world. It's like a happy sunshine face, Mrs. Wizard. It's yellow even.
Yeah, it's quite the eye catcher.
I've serviced this Beetle for this customer for many years. She bought it not long ago, and she just really has loved the car, and she says she doesn't want another car. She just wants to keep fixing this one. So we have been keeping it fixed for her, and she's been very happy. It's in good shape. Many of these Beetles are beat up pretty hard. They can be roached out, but this one is decent. It is actually in pretty good shape. You can see it's not all caved in or dented or faded or scratched. It's presentable. It's actually very presentable. And we didn't walk very many steps and we're already to the front again. It's kind of a small car. We'll go ahead and open the hood and take a look under there. So here we have the 2-liter 4-cylinder with a manual. They could have also had an automatic. There were several different engine options during this year. You could have gotten the 1.8 turbo. You could have gotten a TDI, which would have been a 1.9-liter diesel. And then there was this 2.0 4-cylinder, which is kind of like the base model engine. As the years went on, you can get a Turbo S. You could get even a 2.5-liter, the inline 5, several different engine options, but this one happens to be the 2.0. It's a happy little engine. It's not having any leaks or issues or anything like that. It just keeps strumming along. It does have the weird double-sided serpentine belt on these. I've showed that to a few people and they're like, what's wrong with this belt? And I'm like, nothing's wrong with this belt. That's the way it's designed. Grooves on both sides. It's kind of neat. We don't have any issues under the tiny little hood here. We're going to move on to the fuel door. So right here is the little button for the fuel door. It's actually on the driver's door. You can see it's illuminated red. And the customer wasn't able to put fuel in it. She had to do the emergency release to get it to open, but if we were to push the button, nothing would happen. And that was really causing some issues with her. Magic Mike actually diagnosed it, and he did a very good job. He tested the fuse, and it was good. And the next thing he did is took his little screwdriver out, just like so. You can get to these very easily. We have the trunk, the rear trunk switch, and also the fuel switch. He was able to disconnect this connector. You guys know I have a power probe in the shop. It's a little red device that connects to the battery, and it has a little needle point at the tip, and you can give power, you can test for power, ground, everything. It's a very powerful tool. It's actually in our Amazon affiliates link if you want to check it out. But he disconnected the connector right here, just like that. And now he used the power probe. He is the switch. No longer are we using the switch. and he put power to the wire that goes to the solenoid back there to release the fuel door. And when he did, it opened. It worked perfect. We had power here, ground, everything that we needed on these connections, but it just wasn't doing it. And it's very easy to figure out. It's the switch. So we bought a new switch, and it works perfectly. I was very happy with Magic Mike's diagnosis. That's the kind of thinking that I like to think. It's the fuse, move to the switch, take the switch out, now you can be the switch. Right here at this connector, tons of things can be found out. You don't need to tear apart the fuel door, you don't need to tear the door apart or a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Everything can be done right here. In like 5 or 10 minutes, he's like, yeah, it needs a switch. And I ordered one, boom, it's fixed. So that solved the fuel door issue for this customer. Well, the shaking doesn't happen here at the door, and that's the next issue we're going to jump into. The customer specifically said that she can feel the shaking in the floorboard at her feet. We'll go ahead and get this thing on the lift, and we'll look underneath, check the underneath out just like we always do. Then we're going to dive into what can cause vibrations. There's various different vibrations. You can feel them in your seat. You can feel them in the floorboard. You can feel it in the steering wheel. There's various different things that you can feel, and it can actually tell you where it's coming from based on where you feel it. So let's go ahead and get the Beetle on the lift. So first order of business, you guys know on my silver Beetle that I got from Eurasian Bob, some person in the past tried to lift my Beetle using the rocker moldings instead of the pinch weld. And you know it has 2 dents right there. If you look right here, this has been a problem with these Beetles for over a decade. You lift it on the pinch weld right here, not on the rocker molding. So many people try to lift them right here and it just crushes. It'll just cave in. It is not meant to be lifted there. So if you have one of these Beetles, and even if you're just putting a jack under the car, do not put it right here, out on the outer edge. You have to go in about 2 or 3 inches. There's where you lift it on the pinch weld. So like I mentioned, there's various different vibrations you can feel from the driver's seat. You can feel it in your feet. You can feel it in the seat itself. You can feel it on the steering wheel. This one is particular felt at your feet, in the footwell. What do you guys think it could be? I'm going to play a multiple choice, and we're going to check a few things, and then we'll take a look underneath the car. Could it be A, wheel balance? Could it be B, a loose radiator flopping in the wind? Could it be C, a CV shaft? Or D, the brake rotors? So you guys go ahead and comment what you think it is, and let's go take a look what we find out. We start right here at the wheel. We can see there's the brake rotor. They are a little bit worn. There's really no way to tell if they're warped by looking at them. That's something that you do when you drive it. You just lightly push the brakes. That will be a vibration that you feel in the steering wheel, not at your feet or in your seat. What happens is as the pads start to contact the rotor, it actually will start making your steering wheel do this. And when I feel that, I know it's the brakes. There's no other thing it can be. You can see this tie rod right here that connects to the steering rack. So when you have a warped rotor, it transmits all that warpage right through this tie rod into the steering rack and straight to your steering wheel. So that's not going to be the problem. Our brake rotors are not going to cause a vibration specifically at the feet. Is it a loose radiator? Let's take a look. So you guys think that's a stupid answer. Obviously it can't be the radiator, but it can. I've had things in the front end flopping in the wind. And someone who's not mechanically inclined, they don't know, I mean, they feel things and they think it could be their feet, and it's not their feet. They're not tuned into car mechanical problems. luckily this radiator's nice and tight. The mounts are all intact. Everything's good to go. Looks like we spilled a little oil. We need to clean that up when we did the oil change. Get a rag and wipe that off. Okay, so it's not our radiator. It's not our brake rotors. Is it an out of balance wheel? One thing you're going to check for is here is on this back side of the wheel, here's a wheel weight. It says P 1 ounce. You could check to see if maybe one of those are missing. You'll see a little indentation in the wheel or a stain kind of where one used to be. If it's gone, that's possibly you need to get the wheels off, put it on the balance machine and see if maybe they're out of balance. If the tires are out of balance, again, that's going to be something that transmits to the steering wheel. You're going to feel it a little bit on the steering wheel, especially like 60, 65, 70, you're really going to feel some shaking on the steering wheel. Brake rotors shake when you hit the brakes. Pretty much that's the only time they shake. An out of balance wheel will specifically shake at certain speeds, but not at other speeds. It'll smooth out. But both are only felt in the steering wheel. Again, the customer said she felt right there on the floorboard is where she felt the vibration. So what is right here at the floorboard in this area? We have an engine torque mount right here, which is in good shape. We have subframe mounts. We have control arms. And then we have, look guys, a new CV shaft. You guessed it. Well, it's the only thing left that there is. The CV shaft was bad. I actually have the old one. Let's move over to the CV shaft, the old one. So this is the passenger side CV shaft, the longer side. It could be also the driver's side. You can't tell till you really take a look. But based on just where the vibrations were coming through at the footwell, I kind of knew we need to check the CV shafts. And we looked underneath, and this is what we saw. The boot had been torn for maybe a few weeks, maybe a month or two. We haven't seen the car in the shop in quite a while. So sometime in that time it has torn. There's actually sand and dirt in the shaft. It's gritty, you can feel it. And that has destroyed the little ball bearings and things inside there that were nice and tight tolerance, and now they're loose and floppy. And when you're going down the road, the thing just shakes. And you feel that right there by your feet, because literally it's right there by your feet. So I knew right away when I saw this, and I can actually feel the sand on my hands, I said, get that thing off of there, that's a pile of junk now. Put a new CV shaft on, and we went and drove it, and the vibrations are completely gone. So let's finish looking under the car, and then we'll put it back on the ground. Our oil pan is nice and dry. There is some tiny seepage here coming from the transmission, a few things, but there's no drips, there's nothing going on, so we're not going to really delve into that or mess with it. Here's our catalytic converter, which luckily this thing is low enough to the ground that no one has stolen it. And you never thought that would be such a big problem, but it is here in the Wichita area. These are usually broken and gone. This is the connector for the O2 sensors. That's kind of shielded with that little shield, and it's all in good shape. Everything really on this car is pretty nice. She's taking care of it. Here's our exhaust mount. Come back to our fuel filter, our fuel tank. We put that on not too long ago. There's the fuel tank, everything's good, no leaks. Check these back shocks and brakes. The shocks are nice and dry. The brakes are about half gone, but they're still good. No sway bars back here because it is a solid beam rear axle. There is no sway going on. Brake pads are good. The shock is dry. Here's our fuel filler neck. All nice and dry there as well. Tires look fairly new. They still have all the little, I guess you call them nipples or something on there. So, all right, let's get it on the ground. It looks good. So the fuel door issue, solved. The vibrating floor, solved. And I think her whole bill was like $1,000 or less for everything. We also got an oil change and some services and things on it as well. So that's also on the bill. That's why she keeps bringing it back here, because it's solved and we get it taken care of. Keep in mind, with this vibration issue, it can easily tally up a really high bill if you're just doing the shotgun approach. Well, let's try balancing the wheels. Well, that didn't work. Let's try a new set of pads and rotors. Well, that didn't work either. Let's try see a new set of control arms, maybe the ball joints. No, that didn't solve it either. And you could have $2 or $3 grand into the car and it's still shaking in the floorboard. Remember, the steering wheel is typically going to be brake rotors or out of balance wheels. The floorboard is going to be transmission or CV shaft or things right there by the floorboard, motor mounts, things like that. If you feel it in your seat, like it actually shakes you, it's typically going to be something in the rear axle. You got out of balance wheels in the back or something loose in the back, or even in the middle of the car. It could be a drive shaft if it's rear-wheel drive. That's 90% accurate. You can be tricked or fooled. Sometimes it's kind of hard to narrow it down. It's like, exactly, where is that coming from? But make sure to check those things out before just start buying parts and throwing on the car. It can save you a lot of time and money.
You mean like the wheel bearings on War Turtle?
Yes, wheel bearings can really be tricky, especially on War Turtle, which was a Turbo S Beetle in 04 that I had. All 4 were bad, but they were in sequential order, one louder than the other. So you would replace the one, it was so loud, it was like, that's got to be it. So we replaced that one, still not fixed. The next one, and then the next one. And the 4th one was barely, you could barely hear it, but it was just starting to go bad. And at the time, I was like, replace it, it's going to go bad too. All 4 had to be replaced, that's crazy. So you've seen some Beetles here lately in the shop. You saw my Beetle, we saw this Beetle, and we do work on quite a few Beetles. I really love Beetles. It could be air-cooled, it could be this generation or the A5 generation, which I have. They're all beautiful cars. But keep in mind, we found the CV shaft was bad on this, causing that vibration. That can apply to tons of cars, Toyotas, Nissans, Chevys, Fords, Hondas, Kias, all of them. If it's got CV shafts, it can cause that vibration, just like I showed, where dirt gets in there and destroys the joint. If you're curious what kind of tools we use to work on this Beetle, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button because there is that new project coming and you don't want to miss out. Thanks for watching.